Business Computing Weekly, session number 416.
You are listening to the Business Computing Weekly podcast. It is time to incorporate technology into your business and take it to the next level. And here's your host, Bruce Naylor.
Hey, and thank you, my friends, for joining us for another session of Business Computing Weekly. I hope that everybody has a great and wonderful and productive week ahead. We're the podcast that helps you grow your small business with power, passion, and performance. This week, I'd like to share my personal plug of the week, which is GFI Mail Essentials Online. Probably some of you may know that a lot of folks used to use Google Postini for anti-spam control for their email server, but they've now required you at Google to convert Postini to Google Apps. Well, GFI's got a better way to go, and that is GFI Mail Essentials Online, which offers anti-spam. It's all hosted, by the way, in the cloud. It offers anti-spam, antivirus protection for your email, as well as business continuity for around $1 a month per mailbox. You can have some fantastic antivirus and anti-spam control for your email system, and I can provide you with a free 30-day evaluation of GFI Mail Essentials Online. Just go to frugalbrothers.com, click the contact tab at the top, and we'll get you taken care of at frugalbrothers.com. GFI Mail Essentials Online, I got to tell you, it's really awesome. And more folks are ordering that through us right now, and we make it very easy to get you set up and get that working evaluation going. So this week, I wanted to share with you 5 tips to help get things done. Getting things done, I tell you, I keep quite busy. You know, I'm in the network security business, and I also produce 2 audio podcasts as well as a YouTube video podcast, for the lack of a better term, called Typical Geeks. So there's the Queen and I podcast I do with my wife, Cindy. There's Business Computing Weekly that I do record every Sunday. And then every Friday afternoon, I record Typical Geeks. And that gives me a lot going on. Plus, keeping my social media all updated and current. There's a lot to do. And I tell you, I always pride myself on being a really organized kind of person. But it just seemed like the harder I worked, the further behind I started to get. And I had a soul-searching week last week, and I said, you know what? There's different ideas that I'm putting into action that I wanted to share with you, my audience today, that I know these techniques work because I've done them at one time or another, but I really didn't stick to it. This time I am. And I just wanted to share some of these things I've already put into action over the last month or so. But I've not fully implemented everything until the final pieces were put into place early this week. So I want to get started with you. Now, the first thing, at least me, I am not a good multitasker. I cannot do multiple things and do each and every one of them well at one time. I just can't. I'm not a great multitasker. And it turns out there's a lot of science that proves that even though people think they can do multiple things at the same time, they can't necessarily do them well. So this is based in science. And I come across the concept called chunking. And it's really very, very simple. So what chunking is where you allocate time to complete tasks without interruption. No phone calls, no checking your email, no meetings, no distractions. It's quality time to sit down and accomplish those tasks. And so I fired up Outlook and I created myself a template for a weekly schedule with these chunks of time. Personally, my most productive hours of the day are somewhere between about 9 a.m. to 1 in the afternoon, in that time range. So what I do is I attempt to accomplish my big 3 tasks of the day during that time. And I will chunk out the time during those morning hours to get that done. So on the PC, I use Microsoft Outlook, and I use it to schedule my tasks. And I keep it short. I keep it realistic. I also keep different calendars. I have a calendar for my business, frugalbrothers.com. I have a calendar for my podcast, and then I maintain a personal calendar. So I maintain 3 different calendars because that's how I sort of organize things here. And this works great for me. So my first tip is to master the art of time chunking. Give up multitasking. It simply doesn't work for most of us. Schedule that time on your calendar to work totally uninterrupted on those tasks, those projects, those pressing things that grow your business. Now, I used to be very bad about, I have moved from a 3-monitor setup on my system to 1. And there's a reason. There's actually a couple of reasons why. But I went from 3 24-inch displays to 1 27-inch display. And so far, that experiment is working out really, really well for me. What was I doing with those? I had to ask myself, what was I doing with those 3 displays? Well, in one, directly in front of me was my web browser. I had them arranged in kind of a U shape. And the one on my left, that had my email client, Outlook, open all the time. And the one on my right, I kept things like my Twitter feed and my Skype and various messaging applications open that all the time. And I found myself constantly checking that email, constantly looking over. And that's not productive. It just was not productive. And I would sit down with my to-do list, and at the end of the day, things weren't done because I would zero in on a quick response to a prospect, and that led to more emails. And the next thing you know, I'm looking up technical support information form, whatever. And I found myself getting further and further behind. I don't do that anymore. I schedule looking at my email 4 times a day. 4 times a day is when I look at email, respond to it, etc. But those tasks, those things that I want to accomplish to help grow my business, these goals, every task is a goal towards growing my company. And I never have a problem coming up with at least 3 different things. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But I make sure that I allow myself the time. I don't have the distractions. Outlook is minimized. The instant messaging and all those apps, minimized. Everything is minimized except whatever software I need to complete the tasks that are at hand. So that was number 1. Mastering time chunking, getting rid of the distractions. Number 2 is called Inbox Zero. Okay. So me and Outlook don't always get along, folks. I'm telling you. I just don't always get along with it. I'm not really a big fan of Outlook, and I'll be the first to admit it, but it can be an incredibly powerful tool if you master Outlook and not let it master you. And email is something that you can get quickly overwhelmed by. I get several hundred emails per day. That's on an order of magnitude, several hundred per day. And to try to archive them, categorize them, do all this different stuff with them, as well as answering people back and forth in real time, got to be a tremendous pain. And I said, enough. I'm going to master the email. I'm going to take the power, the control over Outlook. All right? So here's the situation. Been an email junkie, always had Outlook open on the 3rd display, was a pack rat, saved everything, spent all day looking at email, no more. What do I do differently today? Well, as I said prior, I check it 4 times a day because that way I can focus on my business. Now, what I do now with emails, I set up 3 categories. I heard this somewhere, and it just made sense. 3 categories. And the categories are action items, waiting on, and someday. When I get an email that I need to take care of quickly as possible, that becomes an action item. If it's something I've responded to and I'm waiting to hear back on this, then I would categorize it as waiting on. And of course, someday means, this is too important to delete or just archive, but I'll go ahead and hang on to it and do it when time permits. So now, my new policy is once I check that email, I go through and I read and delete. I don't archive anything unless it's very, very important and related to my business. I no longer archive stuff like I used to. And because of this system, essentially, most of the tasks that I do have to perform throughout the day are somehow related to email. I'm using email more as a task manager than an email client. And this is proven to be extremely powerful. So I have a red category, action item. Yellow category, waiting on. Green category is someday. And I can look at that real quick in my inbox, and I can see what I need to do to get done and use it as more as a task manager than as an email client. Have I gotten rid of all the email in my inbox? Well, no, I haven't reached zero quite yet, but I do keep my email now totally under control. Okay, that's my second tip. Inbox zero. Aim for that. Make Outlook work for you. Don't let Outlook dominate you. You dominate Outlook or whatever email system that you have, but have some type of system in place and leave email alone except when at pre-scheduled times. People will understand that you don't necessarily respond to your email within minutes. My third tip, and this is a big one, is called the Big Three. And the Big Three are three major tasks that I want to accomplish each day. So it begins this way. At the end of the day, at the end of the workday, I sit down and I think about what are three major goals, tasks that I need to complete tomorrow. And I will put those into Outlook, or you can write them down on paper, however you want to do it. And those are the things, remember I talked about time chunking in my most productive hours? Those are the things that I'm going to attempt to conquer tomorrow. I have a short list. I used to generate big, long to-do lists, really big to-do lists. And they would just grow and grow and grow. And it seems like I was constantly adding to them. Before I would accomplish one task, I would be adding two more. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I achieved anything. And a lot of the tasks that I was putting on my to-do list were not that important to the growth of my business. All right. This I have found has been one of the most helpful things I can do that has personally helped me grow and earn more money. Now, because I'm in a mixed environment, I have Macs and PCs. I use Office 365 to run my email, my calendars, and so forth. Those will sync to the Apple reminders. If I schedule a task in Outlook, it will sync to the reminders on my iPad. It'll sync to the reminders on my iPhone. And it syncs, I have a Mac Pro here I use for video editing and audio editing, and it syncs there as well. So by doing it that way, I always have access to my tasks, my big three. I can quickly look at the completed stuff. And if something comes up, pops into my head during the middle of the day that should be maybe on the next day or the day after, then I'll put that as a task and set that date. But the important thing is not to let your to-do list grow totally out of control. You feel that you're not getting anything accomplished. You feel overwhelmed. This is what I was talking about. And that is, again, get these big three that should be the last thing I think that you do as you prepare to leave the office or, switch gears for the day to relax. Write those three things down. These are the three things I really need to accomplish tomorrow. Anything else is gravy, but I got to get these three things done. And in order to do those things, we go back to the first tip, which was mastering the art of time chunking. Fourth tip. This is kind of a long-range thing, a long-term thing. I believe you have to invest in yourself. And you do it several different ways, but two ways that come to mind particularly is time and in education. You have to invest in time in yourself, and you have to invest in time, and you also have to invest in educating yourself. Now, look, my chief business focus around network security products. And this field that I'm in is always changing and moving and evolving industry. And that requires not only do I know what's the latest in the products that I sell, but also I need to know what my competition is doing. I have to learn about what are new threats out there. I have to learn about new vulnerabilities. I have to understand compliance issues such as the payment card industry data security standard, Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. I have to know about compliance in these issues. Therefore, on my template, that calendar template under business, I scheduled once a week a chunk of time that I can dedicate to studying products, reading about trends, staying up to date in training. That is an investment in my education. And by investing in that education, I am investing in myself. Here's a powerful tool and ally to help with that, Evernote. And if you've not heard of Evernote, it is free. It is, to me, the best note-taking application out there. It synchronizes. You can get it for Android, iPhone. It runs on your PC, your Mac. There is a part that will work with your web browser. It's called a web clipper. So when there's little things that you think might be interesting, you shove it all into Evernote. You can tag your notes, and it's absolutely one of the most productive pieces of software you could ever own. You must have this. I'm telling you, everyone must have a copy of Evernote. All right? I am improving in myself. I'm making that investment in time chunking to invest in myself. For this business to go forward, I have to constantly look for ways to improve, and that's what I'm doing. The fifth tip, and that is to remove negativity and allocate to the positive. There is nothing more unproductive and a waste of time than to deal with negative influences in your life. See, I have two basic goals. At the end of the day, it boils down to two basic things. One, grow my company, and two, spend more quality time with my family. And yeah, there is a third goal, I guess, which is I want to be in a position where I can contribute more and give back more to my community. Maybe even help mentor others. But for right now, it's growing the business and being able to spend more quality time with my family. That means that I have to learn to manage my time, and I have to do it wisely. And I cannot afford those people that are negative distractions. I can't afford to deal with anything that is a negative kind of distraction in my life. And I am removing those things from my life as of now. And I am only going to partner and associate with positive people whenever possible. I am surrounding myself with books and podcasts that motivate me to keep growing both professionally and personally. There is simply no room in my life for wasted time. I have wasted too much time. No more. I am reclaiming my time, and my time is being driven towards fulfilling a purpose, my mission. And anything that distracts from that mission, I must eject. I must get rid of it. Delegate, delete, get rid of it. I simply will not allow myself to indulge a negative person to rob me of any more of my precious time, because that's the only quantity that we know that is limited. It is finite. We have to master. See, I think if you're catching my drift about this whole show, it's really about time management and how to use the technology you have. I've mentioned Outlook. I've mentioned Evernote for two things. There's other tools out there, but those are the two major ones that I use. In my iPad, I use these things to master my time, and I'm telling you why I have to do it. And I bet you there's some of you listening to this podcast shaking your head going, this sounds kind of familiar. Believe me, this fifth tip, removing negativity, not only will improve your business, your income, you'll be a happier and healthy person because of it. I have a bonus tip, by the way. I know I said 5 tips. Well, here's my 6th tip. Most of us now cannot really escape social marketing, social networking, etc. is part of who we are. See, I think that's part of the business world, that your personal life may end up intertwining with your professional life. And managed properly, that's not a problem. And so I've decided to allocate some chunking to take care of social on a more active basis. Because I am really, really active in social media, and that's largely in part to my podcast and YouTube activity, my template is to chunk at least a half an hour every day for sharing and updating Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, possibly Google+. And it's not to say, hey, look at me, look at Frugal Brothers, buy from me, listen to my podcast, but I'm talking about contributing information that I think my followers would be interested in. And it's not always going to be about me, but rather it's an ongoing campaign to create dialogue. It is an ongoing campaign to become a thought leader in these areas. And yes, occasionally I will promote Business Computing Weekly on these things. I've also chunked time for this podcast during the week, not just on the Sunday when I record, but during the week so I can use that time to promote Business Computing Weekly and also schedule and conduct interviews as well. And what I'm doing is I'm making my time work to my advantage to accomplish the things that I want to do over the long term. Will I be able to follow this to the letter? No. You have to be flexible. And there's just have to be flexible. But it's a guideline. And every morning when I fire up my calendar, I know that this is the time that I scheduled today to do this thing. And it helps me keep on track. And it's a work in progress. And I'll shuffle and reschedule until it's perfect. But at least today, I have a plan of how to make every day of the week count to the absolute maximum. And I'm doing it with Microsoft Outlook. I'm doing it with Evernote. I do use a few other tools here and there. I do use Apple reminders on the iPad, for example. Skype is part of it. Office 365 SharePoint is part of it. So there's multiple moving parts. But by employing these techniques, time chunking, inbox zero, 3 major tasks, investing in my time and education, removing negativity, working in social, all these things will move me towards my goals. Learning to manage time rather than having time manage me will free me to be more creative, more productive, and a happier and healthier person. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this week's edition of Business Computing Weekly. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of Business Computing Weekly. Remember, if it's in your shop not making you money or saving you money, get it out of there. I'll talk to you later.